Okay, so this video has been a long time on the back burner for several reasons. Primarily though because I didn't want to make a video claiming any one specific company to be any more or less credible than any other. I knew the moment I made a video claiming that CNN was more credible than Conservative Tribune, that CNN would turn around and pull some bullshit righty move making me look like a twat. Which is almost exactly what happened on several occasions. Halfway through the script, or the outline, some shit would surface that made me have to rethink everything that I was thinking or that I wanted to say. I wanted oh so much to justify the mainstream news and criminalize this new trend of web-based alternative news. And at the end of the day, I still hate the alternative news. Or at least the vast majority of it. And we'll get into that in a moment. But first I just wanted to clarify, I do not at all approve of the way mainstream news has drifted down this slippery slope of clickbait and misreporting or just simply flat out lying. News has always been opinion-filled. A reporter or a journalist is still a human, and they see things through human bias eyes. A war reporter that wants to see the horrors of war and wants to report on how vile war can be will embark on their quest already having decided that nothing good can come of war, and as a result, their expose will reflect that. They will not see, or they will cut out the bits that do not conform with their agenda. And likewise, a person who wants to make a piece about the generosity of soldiers under fire to the very people that are trying to kill them will be just as guilty of this bias. They won't show you the parts where the dead babies are laying in the rubble of a burning house. They'll instead show you clips of soldiers playing kickball with some kids while on patrol. It's ultimately on us, the viewer, to see through this bias and recognize that war is vile and very often soldiers are very caring people. News, like all things in life, is not cut and dry. It's not black and white. And while it probably should be, it can't be because it's reported by humans. Humans with bias. Humans with agenda. Humans with flaws. Those of us who are unable to grasp that simple reality have no business reading, watching, or commenting on news. Prior to and during this last presidential campaign, I watched over the years as social media, though namely Facebook, saw a spread of what I called fake news. And just for the record, I know Trump likes to claim credit for the term fake news, but I was bitching at my family back in 2013 for sharing what I called BS fake news. Just prior and during that time, there was a surge of these websites, mostly conservative in nature, which would spring up overnight, last a few months building up a viewership, and then disappear. A good example was Conservative Lady and Conservative Tribune. A who is on these sites revealed that they were owned by the same man. And now, it was years ago that I was having to deal with my family posting from these sites, and I wasn't making videos back then. But anytime I stumbled across a remarkably stupid news link, I would do some checking. A lot of these, quote, news sites were owned by the same 5 or 6 people. These 5 or 6 individuals would create a news website from a template, populate it with these absurd conspiracy theories or grossly misrepresented news articles, then they would flood social media with these links back to their site. They would grow the site to a profitable point and then sell the entire package. Often they would own 3 or 4 of these sites at one time, and once all were sold, they would create some more, and start the process all over. These sites were often registered in California and Nevada, mostly, with a few being on the East Coast, but it was rare. The sites all reported the same stories, at the same time, and often using the same wording, verbatim. The websites would have an about page, which would either be blank or have some very generic backstory for the quote company. There was often a contact us link, which would either not be clickable or link to a page that was broken. A few of these sites, such as Conservative Tribune for example, grew in viewership enough that they opened the doors and started letting viewers write their news articles. Now, Conservative Tribune has changed hands at least twice since 2014. The site looks and reads nothing like it used to except in what it reports, which is extreme right pseudoscience lies and garbage, the very definition of fake news, with just enough truth sprinkled in to almost seem credible to an idiot. Unfortunately, such is the example I used regarding Conservative Tribune, the original digging I did on them was years ago, and I know there are screenshots and commentary outlining everything that I dug up on their site, and its at the time owner. This would exist on Facebook in the form of a reply to a family member who has long since blocked me years ago, due to constantly shooting down their absurd claims with facts and citation. Current day Conservative Tribune is nothing like it was a few years ago, which is nothing like it was in 2009. It's changed hands, layout, and motive, evolving from a political blog to a single-person fake news site to a full-fledged company with employees. Now on to why I hate this kind of fake news so much. It's one thing to report on political events with bias. It should be illegal, but it's not, and nearly every single outlet does it. But bias can only take one so far. A few years ago, there was a remark made by a biologist who stated, in passing, that the octopus was so extremely different from the human that we could call them alien. That's not a verbatim comment, but you get the point. He obviously did not mean that the cephalopod species had flew here from Octopus majoris 9. He was simply saying that they branched off from our common ancestry so far back in time that their evolution had differed so much from ours it was hard to find the comparisons. Common sense shit that basically everyone who read the article understood. Except the UFO people, who took the article, embellished, and then went apeshit, making claims that science had proven the octopus was from another planet. To which people on my Facebook friends list, or one person, decided was the holy grail. I spent the better part of a week trying to explain to him that when you read shit posted on sites like the one he was linking, you weren't going to get anywhere near reality. I posted the original article with the actual quotes. I posted comments made later by other actual scientists trying to clarify that it was not what the nuts were claiming it to be. It didn't matter. He found something that conformed to his personal ideology, and he was not going to let that go. Thanks to that shit website reporting in a biased or misleading manner, this dude will forever believe that the octopus species are all from some far-flung galaxy. The same holds true when it comes to political reporting. For instance, the Trump landslide victory. We all know that Trump barely won the election. He did win, but it was only barely. And we also know factually that he lost the popular vote. These are simple facts of life. However, Trump declares that he won in a landslide, and right-wing political publications will parrot that claim. People out there who cling to the ideology that Trump can do no wrong cannot see through the bullshit for the facts. They scream fake news at the reporters who report the facts, while holding the reporters who spread this misleading or flat-out wrong statement as an outstanding source. So, most often when you hear someone screaming fake news today, they're not talking about actual fake news. They're talking about news that is reported in a way that does not conform with their ideology or beliefs, which does not make it false. It makes it biased. It makes it uncomfortable. It does not make it fake. What makes news fake is when they report in a way that spins, twists, or misreports or flat out lies, and in order to push a narrative that is more to their liking or the liking of their target viewers, to a degree that it ceases to contain any actual facts. A right-wing publication will push the narrative that the feds are coming to take our guns. We must fight to keep our rights. They'll use statistics and actual facts, but with the intent to push a narrative. Meanwhile, the left will push the narrative that we need to outlaw guns. They also will use statistics and actual facts, but they'll spin them in a way that supports their own narrative. Both sides will say truths and use actual statistics to drive their own personal agenda. Neither case is really fake news unless they cross some line, either by flat-out lying or spinning to a degree that removes the article so far from the truth that it can simply not be defended. It's on the reader or the viewer to recognize the bias and see through the spin. Unfortunately, I don't think that we as a nation are receiving the critical thinking skills in school that's required to see through that much spin and bias. School teaches memorization, but not critical thinking. We also have, over the years, found it easier and easier to confine ourselves to our own like-minded cliques. The internet, which should, by all rights, bring us together in a way that was never possible in the past, seems to have further segregated us, providing each and every one of us with easy access to our favorite echo chamber. My point being, fake news does exist, but very often, and in the case of our president always, when someone screams fake news, they're talking about mainstream media. And the filth that they consider real news comes from sites such as Conservative Tribune, or even Breitbart, which is not only biased, but flat out unfactual. The difference between mainstream and homegrown news sites is that one is held accountable for their actions, the other is not. When CNN fucks up, and they do, they have to fix the fuck up. They have to apologize, and people lose their jobs. When Conservative Tribune fucks up, It's not a fuck-up. It's intentional, and they simply don't care. I'm really starting to ramble here and kind of drone a bit, so let's get back on point. Fake news is a real thing. It exists in some form on all news platforms, some intentional, some by mistake. It's left to the reader to see the facts through the bullshit, which, frankly, I don't think is possible for a sizable chunk of Americans anymore. I suppose the only real solution is for us to set some kind of legal precedence, where, in reporting anything in a biased or misleading manner results in prosecution. I don't think news is a place for bias, and when one distorts facts to push agenda, jail time should be served. Everyone, from the biggest mainstream media outlet to the smallest backwater news blog, should be held to this reporting standard. This will leave no room for a spin factory to push extremist or false reports in order to push their agenda. You can say this is stifling of our freedom of speech, but when we have so many voting Americans who can simply not on their own accord see through their own bias, the effects of actual fake news can be detrimental, as we can see by our current political situation. So what do you think? Am I wrong? Am I right? What's your opinion on the news industry and our current political situation? Let's talk about it. Comment, let's discuss this. Anyhow, that's me. Done ranting. Peace, fuckers.
Hey, this is Jesus, up in heaven. Just wanted to pop in and remind you to subscribe to Derp's channel. Well, what are you waiting for? Do it. Jesus out.